Welcome back to another reaction stream, the first one of the FPL season, and so much has happened already. We've got one game left, Man United versus Wolves tomorrow, and then we can start fully looking ahead towards game week 2. I'm currently on 70 points. I've got 3 players left, Onana, Bruno Fernandes, and Marcus Rashford, and my overall rank is around 800,000, but after subs are made, that does go down a little bit to around 1 million. But let's get straight into your questions, and if you end up enjoying the stream, you know what to do. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. We're very close to new milestones, such as 19,000 subscribers. So let's get straight into it, and I'll try to whiz through some of the earlier comments just so I can catch up and not be too far behind. So welcome E.G. Ryan, 61 points, Bruno, Rashford, Onana to play. Is it best to roll the transfer or get rid of Gabriel for Saliba or get Watkins out for Pedro or Mbuma in from Mitoma? All of the players you suggested are really good. Not only the ones you're looking to bring in, but also the ones you're looking to sell. I think the best play is to roll the transfer. Gabriel will definitely come in for Game Week 2. It was a big surprise to see him left out against Nottingham Forest, and that broke a streak of 73 consecutive Premier League games where Gabriel has started for Arsenal, and it was very surprising to see the news. I think it came in the last few minutes before the deadline, and I don't even know why I had a feeling about going for Saliba. I actually had no idea until the deadline passed that there were rumours of Gabriel being benched. I definitely wouldn't sell Gabriel for Saliba. I would stick with him. And as for Watkins up for Pedro, I have to say, João Pedro, great opening fixtures. He's so cheap as well on penalties, but I wouldn't sell Watkins ahead of Everton at home, and I still think he's a better asset than João Pedro. As for Mbuma, he's on penalties too, and he hasn't been too impressive in pre-season, and even against Tottenham, although he looked lively, had a lot of shots, I wouldn't sell Mitoma for Mbuma just yet. If anything, wait until Game Week 3 or 4, and by that time, you probably won't be as interested in João Pedro. Wazoo says, sitting on 60 points with Shaw, Fernandes and Rashford yet to play, making it an unusual but decent Game Week 1 for once. Gabriel provides the only real blemish, but I think I'm going to persist with him. Yeah, I definitely would persist with him. I think he's going to come back into the side, especially if Timber is out for a while. You might point towards the fact that it was Tomiyasu coming on for Timber, and there are some people who suggest that maybe Gabriel had a bit of a falling out with Arteta, and it's kind of a disciplinary thing. I think it was just tactical, and Arteta wanted to go really offensive against Nottingham Forest. I would definitely keep him, and I think 60 plus points is a decent start to the season for sure. And you've got 3 United players left. You would expect a clean sheet and possibly 1 attacking return at least from those 2 attackers. Welcome Bestie, good to see you. Thoughts on Eze to Mbeumo? I like Eze a lot as an FPL asset. I think he'll be right up there until the end of the season, but because of those opening fixtures, that was enough to put me off. I was expecting a return against Sheffield United, but then I look at the other games like Arsenal at home, and whilst he can certainly do well, the ceiling won't be as high on paper. So I think Eze to Mbeumo looks fairly decent, especially from Game Week 3 onwards, but yeah, I think that's a transfer I would actually consider making even as early as Game Week 2, but the thing is, it's such a difficult one because you know how much quality Eze has, and Mbeumo doesn't have the easiest Game Week 2 fixture away to Fulham, but if I had to lean towards holding or selling, I probably would lean towards selling, despite how much I rate Eze. Welcome Sidindra, hey Dylan, 68 points with 2 to play, really good stuff. Benched Mbeumo and bought Foden 5 minutes before the deadline for Diaby. Disappointed, but long way to go in the season. To be fair, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here, I don't think it was a penalty for Brentford against Tottenham. You could argue later on in the game they should have had a penalty, but the penalty they got that Mbeumo tucked away, I think that was very soft and it shouldn't have been given. So it's also a bit of bad luck. I mean, you had the information that Foden was starting against Burnley, and it was worth kind of a gamble there. But with Phil Foden, even with that news, I'm not as confident in him in the long term, and that's why I've recommended to most people to not go for him because of that. But it's a bit of bad luck there. And as for Diaby, I mean, he's such a good player, but I'm still kind of just waiting and seeing from afar, because maybe it's the wrong way to go for it because you want to be ahead of the curve and break the template with differentials like Diaby, but I'm more of a cautious manager at times, and maybe that's a fault of mine as well. Welcome Chelsea Blues, good to see you. Thank you very much for tuning in. And another 68, 69 pointer here from Chigozi, I think it is. I probably butchered that. So Onana, Bruno, Rashford to play. So same as me. Really good stuff there for you. And yeah, you have to say that's a really good start to the season. How many points? For me, Henry, it's 70. I obviously know that you said that whilst we were in the waiting screen. yeah, Maddison is looking like a great option. I'm going to talk about him fairly soon. There's a bit of contention about his second assist, but as soon as I saw the goal, I already just thought, yeah, Maddison assist. It might be a bit fortunate, whatever, but he was involved in that goal. So you have to say he's looking really good. What I like about him is his threat from set pieces. He can score directly from them, but he can also set up and create chances. So I think he can get plenty of assists this season, and I do like the look of him. At Leicester, you know, whenever he had a consistent run in the team, no injuries, he was always so promising. Singh also 68 points with 3 to go. Triple United. Not sure if it's any good. I'd say it's very good. On a side note, what do you think of Gabriel now? Definitely hold. You know, Gabriel started 73 consecutive Premier League games in a row. It was a big surprise to see him left out, and also for the news to come out just before the Gameweek 1 deadline. I would definitely hold on to him. I would be very surprised if he was benched yet again. And as you could see, when Arsenal were, you know, suffering a bit at the end of that game when Nottingham Forest scored and looked very dangerous, Arteta immediately turned to Gabriel, and he should have started the game, to be quite frank. Let's see, so 72 points with Triple United left, really good stuff. You know, you're probably looking at 80 plus points there, so fair play. Holken also says, I had Mbuma in my team from July until the day before deadline where I switched to Mitoma, but not a huge difference between the two. I think Mbuma got bonus points in the end, but look, Mitoma, decent start, and I could see Mitoma getting a few other returns in the next few games. You know, I also was on Mbeumo. You know, he was the last midfielder I had before I eventually switched to Mitoma. And for me, it was very close between those two and Eze. And look, so far it's, you know, down to Mbeumo. He's also got the fixtures. He's a great long-term option. But as I said, the penalty was very fortuitous. But that's the good thing about penalty takers. They, you know, doesn't matter if it's lucky or not, they're on penalties. And Mbeumo's a decent penalty taker. And he's done a very good job in Tony's absence. Welcome, Denver. Good to see you as well. Thoughts on Jota? I wasn't as impressed with him as I was maybe in pre-season. I think the main Liverpool forward that I was really impressed by was Diaz, and I was talking about him being the worst of all the options, simply because I don't see him being maybe as nailed as a Salah or a Cody Gakpo. And I also thought in terms of goals and assists, he's probably the worst of the 5. But the good thing about Diaz, he's a fantastic dribbler. He has a lot of shots whenever he plays. Yes, he might not score that often, but he was very impressive today. And he was one of the, you know, key players I might change my opinion on as the weeks go by. As an overall player, I've always rated him, but in terms of FPL asset, I still need a bit more convincing, but I have to say, very impressed with him as well. In terms of Jota, I would hold on for now. He's facing Bournemouth at home next. He might not start, but, you know, that's always going to be the risk with the Liverpool forwards. They've got 5 or 6 quality players in those attacking positions. Welcome, Toronto. Good to see you as well. And thank you very much for the kind words. Thoughts about Newcastle Villa game? I have to say, look, maybe a lot of us, I mean, it's only one game, okay? It's very difficult to make a lot of, you know, conclusions after just one round of games, but Newcastle were absolutely amazing yesterday. You know, they went 1-0 up, then immediately 1-1, and I thought, you know, we could have a really high-scoring game, very competitive from both sides, but Newcastle just absolutely turned it on and demolished Aston Villa. And I'm seeing some Arsenal fans pointing towards maybe Unai Emery's second season syndrome, which happened with Arsenal, and it could happen with Aston Villa. Let's wait and see. But I have to say with Newcastle, I'd mainly look to target them from Game Week 5 onwards, because as good as Isak and Wilson are, they're going to rotate with each other. And yes, there will be times where they both play alongside each other, but it'll be Isak on the left, Wilson up front, and it won't be great for their FPL prospects. Facing Liverpool and City next, yes, they can score goals, but their ceiling will undoubtedly be very low. Newcastle lost both games against Liverpool last season and also lost to City away. So I'd be very wary about bringing them in right now. I'd be looking more towards Game Week 4 or 5 in particular. I put Chilwell and Baldock on from the bench, but it's not registered on points. A glitch? I put Chilwell and Baldock on from the bench. I'm not sure exactly what you mean, so maybe I'm being a bit ignorant there, but if you're making a substitution now after the deadline, that will be for Game Week 2, not for Game Week 1. If Chilwell is going to come on from, you know, your bench because someone in your starting 11 didn't play, then that move will be registered and your points will update by the end of the game week. So you'd be looking at Tuesday morning, basically, after the Man United Wolves game, I think around 12 a.m., 1 a.m. UK time on the Tuesday. That's when Chilwell would then come off from your bench and his points will count towards your total. If that's not what you're talking about, then let me know. Milner says, do you think Gabriel is starting now when Timber's injured? even if Timber, recovers, and hopefully does because it looked like a nasty injury, I would expect Gabriel to get back into the side. And, the main reason why he came off was to accommodate Nketiah, who was looking really impressive in training, and that also meant Partey shifted towards a right-back position, which Arsenal also did in the 1-0 defeat to Nottingham Forest at the City Ground in Game Week 37 last season. Like I said, I'd be very surprised if Gabriel was benched in 2 games in a row. He normally is the most nailed-on Arsenal player, period, so I think he'll come back into the side. As for Timber, that injury looks pretty bad, and I would expect him to be out for at least a few weeks. Any replacement for Stones? If you want a like-for-like, you could maybe go towards a Kanji or Ake, but it would not surprise me if either of them were benched in Game Week 2, because remember, Man City on Wednesday, I believe it is, if not Thursday, they play Sevilla in the UEFA Super Cup final, and there could be rotation in those games, and that's why I just don't trust Man City defenders, and I sold Stones towards Ben Chilwell at the very end. So I think Chilwell could be a nice shout. He's got a good fixture in Game Week 2 against West Ham away, and then some really good games. I think Chelsea from Game Weeks 3 to 7 are top of the fixture difficulty rating of any team. So I think Chilwell would be the one I'd recommend. Do you think Salah will be on the bench against Bournemouth? No. I'd have to say his reaction was a bit surprising. Of course, whenever a top player comes off, it's natural for them to be very frustrated, but he was really pissed off, to say the least. I don't think he's going to be benched. I think him and Klopp will make everything up by tomorrow. Everything will be good, and Salah will do well against Bournemouth. Best 4.5 million replacement for the injured Mings. Yeah, I've got him in my team as well. It's very frustrating to see him injured when he's facing Everton at home. I would even consider starting him. I think as a 4.5 million defender, Botman's the best overall, but I wouldn't bring him in right now. I'd look towards Game Week 5 onwards when Newcastle have better fixtures. So 4.5 million defenders, Udogie, Colwill, probably 2 of the standouts at 4.5 million. I still like Rico Henry. I think he was probably one of the best players in the game today between Brentford and Spurs. Him and Maddison really caught my eye, and Rico Henry probably should have got an assist. So I think right now I would say Rico Henry, Udogie and Colwill would be the top 3 replacements for Tyrone Mings at the same price. Tottenham penalty taker, it's just going to be a guess at this point. I think a Tottenham fan will give you a better insight than me, but for me it's going to be between 3 players, Maddison, Richarlison and Heung-min Son. If I had to hazard a guess, I think it would be Richarlison. Just the gut feeling I have, but I could be completely wrong about that. Olkin says Maddison looked very lively. I'll definitely consider him to replace one of my United Arsenal double-ups in midfield at some point. Yeah, thank you for that. It's going to be a bit of a segue because one comparison I wanted to show you, and of course it's only 1 game week's worth of data, is between Mitoma and Maddison. So as you can see, very identical stats in Game Week 1, but Maddison with an extra assist and also 1 more shot, 1 on target as well. Both same amount of shots in the box, similar XG and expected assists, pretty much exactly the same. And 1 big chance created, 6 key passes for Maddison, 5 for Mitoma. I think 1 transfer I would definitely recommend to all of you, assuming Maddison stays fit and, we don't see Mitoma absolutely wrecking it and maybe making us reconsider things. I think around Game Week 4 or 5, that's when I would consider selling Mitoma towards James Maddison when Spurs have better fixtures and Brighton's games, I think they drop a little bit. Of course, the main appeal behind Brighton assets were the first 3 game weeks of the season. After that, the game weeks are a bit more difficult, especially in Game Week 5 against Newcastle, I think it is. So I think Mitoma to Maddison around Game Weeks 4 or 5 could be a fantastic transfer if you can find that extra million, because remember, Maddison is 7.5 million, probably is going to go up in price, maybe by today or in the next few days. So keep an eye out for that. I think 1 transfer I'm going to be recommending to you over the next couple of weeks is Mitoma to Maddison, but don't do it yet in Game Week 2. I would definitely keep Mitoma in Game Weeks 2 and 3 for the time being. Now, one thing I want to show you, and I put a link in the live chat before the stream started, is to fplstatistics.co.uk, where it's the most reliable site I've seen in terms of price predictions, in terms of price rises and falls. So at the moment, Isak leads the way. I will not be bringing him in when he's facing Man City next. I know Isak is a quality player, but they're facing Man City, who look like the best defence so far from what I've seen in the Community Shield final and in the first round of fixtures in Game Week 1. I know they faced Burnley and against Arsenal was kind of a chess match in that game, but Man City, you just get that impression that they're so difficult to break down and to create good chances against them because they control the game so well. In terms of price falls, as you can see there, De Bruyne is on the brink already. He suffered an injury around 20, 30 minutes in of the Premier League opener, which was a big shame. And he was already struggling with an injury problem. Came on against Arsenal in the Community Shield final for his first few minutes of pre-season. And then after starting against Burnley, which I was surprised by, I thought he'd be benched, he came off with an injury too. So be sure to check out fplstatistics.co.uk, sorry. And there's also a few other websites that I'm going to be referencing today, like Fantasy Football Hub, for example, DraftHand, and a few others too, which I usually do in my videos. But let's get back to your questions and back to my team. If the points are updated, so Chilwell's going to get 2 bonus points, I believe it is, then be sure to let me know and I can update the page. I'm going to have a wait and see. Yeah, so far Ben Chilwell's points aren't updated, but he is getting 2. So 7 points overall from Ben Chilwell. He was the best player today, in my opinion. He was absolutely fantastic. And a few other players that stood out today were Luis Diaz, for sure. Yeah, Chilwell always plays very high up, getting into the box, having shots, creating chances. But today he was literally involved in everything Chelsea did. So I was really impressed by him. And he also scored, but it was offside. It was a clear offside. I was very happy at that point. That would have been maybe a game-changing moment in my season, potentially, but especially in Gameweek 1. This is a very popular question today. So Amit says, what to do with Gabriel? Play. I know he's facing Crystal Palace away, and maybe me saying play is a bit premature because I don't know who else you have for the defenders, but I would definitely keep Gabriel. I wouldn't sell him. He's going to come back into the starting 11 for Arsenal. Papa says, got Chilwell, Estupinian and Shaw. Any thoughts on replacement for Stones? I still like Arsenal defenders. I have to say, even as an Arsenal fan, I was talking about this in pre-season. Arsenal haven't looked that great. In terms of clean sheets, I think they only kept 1 against the MLS All-Stars in a 5-0 win. In every other game they've conceded. Against Nottingham Forest, even before they went 1-0 up, Brennan Johnson had a golden opportunity, which he should have taken. And Arsenal always tend to leak these kind of big opportunities and goals. And especially at home, you look at the Emirates Stadium last season, Arsenal had a good record, but in terms of their defensive numbers and their clean sheets, simply not good enough. But I'd still recommend an Arsenal defender as a replacement for John Stones. You could risk it with an Ake, an Akanji or a Gavardiol, but there's going to be rotation inevitably with every single Man City defender, especially when you've got a Super Cup final now on Thursday, and next weekend you've got the game against Newcastle. So I'd probably stay clear from Man City defenders and go towards an Arsenal defender there. Milner says, is it a good option to bench Eze for Gameweek 2 and bring on Henry? The thing is, look, Eze could do something against Arsenal, but because of the nature of the fixture, a London derby as well, it was 2-0 last season at Selhurst Park, you would give the edge towards Arsenal. And I think Rico Henry, away to Fulham, is probably more likely to give you a return. Of course, Eze's ceiling is normally higher, but I'd probably start Rico Henry there, which might be a mistake, but that would be my gut feeling there. Apologies, as my glasses are kind of messed up, as you've probably seen in the stream on Friday as well. Play Gabriel or Henry? I would play Gabriel there, just about. FPL Glory Algeria says Turner versus Sheffield or Pickford to Sanchez. Turner versus Sheffield is fine. I don't like making goalkeeper transfers. Of course, Sanchez being a 4-point family and goalkeeper, nailed on with Kepa moving to Real Madrid on loan. You have to say the pathway is clear there for Sanchez, but I would just start Turner against Sheffield United and then reassess the situation in a week's time. Welcome, Harry. Yeah, it certainly has been a while. It's good to see you, but ready for the new season. Disappointing start for me. Punts didn't pay off, but that's okay. Hope everyone had a good summer. Likewise, Harry. And to be honest, it's a good thing that you've taken some punts. It might not have worked out yet, but they certainly could over the next few weeks. So I would just probably roll the transfer unless you have like a big, a few injuries or something, or really big headache that you want to get rid of. But I'd probably just, keep the faith and stick with your process and just let the punts, let's say, just give them a bit more time to prove themselves. So hopefully they do pay off. Let me know which punts they were, because certainly I could see maybe 1 or 2 of them being really good options in the future. Alex says, early predictions for the relegated 3 this season. I said this yesterday, so I'm quite convinced about Sheffield United and Luton Town being relegated. And I also said Bournemouth, but I think that third slot is between Bournemouth, Everton, Wolves. I'm probably forgetting another team in here. Nottingham Forest also could be in that relegation fight, but if I had to, give a third option, I haven't seen Wolves play yet, to be fair. I don't know. I have a bad feeling about Wolves at the moment, but Yeah, I think Luton Town and Sheffield United, I'm quite convinced they're going to be relegated. That third slot, I'm just a bit unsure about at the moment. Chelsea look really scary. I know it's the first game, but still they look pretty good at Pochettino. It was a really interesting game. I think a draw was a fair result. I think Liverpool in the first half were the better team, especially from the 15th minute towards the end. But in the second half, I have to say, Chelsea edged it and they created some really good chances. Jackson's going to get opportunities. And yes, his finishing wasn't great today, but he's getting into positions. He's a nuisance for defenders. You know, still really promising signs from him. Chilwell's looking fantastic. I'm happy to have got him in. So yeah, I have to say, for a first game with quite an average first 11 on paper for Chelsea, I have to say they look pretty impressive. I was a bit surprised about Liverpool, though, because they kind of tailed off towards the end of the game, and you would have expected more from them. Bonus points are in. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that very much. So as you can see now, Chilwell has gotten 2 bonus points. So that's taken my total to 70 points overall and a rank of around 800k. I tend to get around 70, 80 points in Game Week 1. So I tend to get a decent start. And I'm quite happy with how things are going so far. If Man United put Wolves to the sword, we could be seeing maybe a 90 plus point Game Week 1 score for me and also for many of you watching. So let's wait and see what Onana, Luke Shaw, Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, etc. can provide us tomorrow night. I'll take my bench Gabriel for easy home games to try the new formation. I mean, it's possible, but for me, look, yes, Partey was good in possession and Arsenal looked pretty impressive in the first half. I still think Arsenal looked more shaky defensively without Gabriel, and I know Saliba got the assist and a lot of people were singing his praises yesterday, but I actually thought he was Arsenal's worst player. And the opportunity that Brendan Johnson had was from Saliba, who was caught lacking a little bit in that moment. So you might be right, Savio. That could be something to look for in the future. But the way I've seen, Gabriel start every single game for Arsenal when available, I think he'll come back into the side. And especially against Crystal Palace away, maybe in those kind of home games, like you said, against the easy opposition, it's a possibility. But I think Gabriel will start pretty much every single game this season. EY says, is it worth taking a -4 point hit to replace Mings for Game Week 2? No. If you've got a decent player on your bench to come on, I definitely wouldn't do that. It looks like he's going to be out for a long time. Hopefully he isn't. But if you've got a decent option on the bench, don't take the -4 hit. Kai Zero says, should I switch from Gabriel to Saliba? I wouldn't do that personally. I think Gabriel's worth keeping. Is Gabriel nailed on? I don't think any Man City defender is going to start every single game. I think the most nailed on defenders will be Ruben Dias and Gabriel, probably in that order. Then you're looking at maybe a Kanji, who always seems to find a way to get into the lineup. But yeah, I'd say maybe he'll start 70, 80% of the games. He won't start every single one. So that will lead to frustrations, especially when you've got the other cups, like the FA Cup in January, the Carabao Cup in around a month's time, also the Champions League. I think that's where things will get really complicated with Man City assets. Thoughts on Liverpool today? Felt they weren't as good as any top 4 contenders. I was really impressed with Liverpool in the first half. It's particularly with Diaz. But I have to say, as the game kept on going, I think Liverpool lost control of the game and they weren't as impressive, as you said, as the other so-called top 4 contenders. But it's only one game. Remember, Chelsea have the home advantage and this fixture has produced a lot of draws in the past. So it's still a fairly decent result. It was Pochettino's first home game as Chelsea manager. And I think Liverpool will probably make a statement victory against Bournemouth, win by 3 or 4, and then more people will gravitate towards them and their assets. But today, I agree with you. They weren't that impressive, but they had some really good moments, especially in the first half. Big Mac Man Barca says, I'm gassed. I got 97 points and still got Bruno and Rashford to play. I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed, unless a calamity happens, let's say, of an 100-point haul in Game Week 1. So fair play, that's a really good start to the season. Do you think James will start next week? It all depends on the injury situation. It looked like he was struggling with a bit of a problem. I think he will start, but it all depends really on the update that Pochettino provides later today. And also, any news we get throughout the week. If there's any risk of an injury, of course, he will be rested, and that will be a bit of a shame. Even Chilwell had a bit of a knock, it seemed, at one point in the game. Play Gabriel or Shaw? Next week, it would be Gabriel. I'm not really expecting a clean sheet for Arsenal away to Palace, but they're more likely than Man United against Tottenham away. One thing about Spurs, they play pretty offensive football here, and they're much more entertaining than they were under Conte or Mourinho, so I would expect goals in that game. FPL Glory says, who to bench, Shaw versus Tottenham or Estupinian versus Wolves? I'd bench Shaw. at this moment in time. Let's see how they play tomorrow, but, looking at the fixture, I would bench Luke Shaw. Would you captain Salah next week? Haven't seen him brought off this early in ages. Good question. Honestly, if I had Salah, I would still captain him. I know there's this big thing about his curse in Gameweek 2. He's never, I think, produced a return in Gameweek 2, but I think he will this time round, and he's got the highest ceiling of any player. Luton about to win the league. I mean, look, I'd like to see them stay up, but against Brighton, they were fairly competitive, I think, in the first half. But in the second, you saw some big defensive mistakes. I don't know exactly who it was, but for the third goal that Brighton scored, you can't be doing that in your own penalty box. A bit naive. But one player, of course, that I've been talking a lot about in pre-season was Morris. He's going to get goals. Of course, it came from a penalty, which was probably very soft as well. But I do like the look of Morris there. What's your transfer plans in Gameweek 2, Dylan? Don't want to be boring, Joao, but probably to do nothing. I know Mings is injured, and there might be a few issues with my team, but I'm quite happy to roll at this moment in time. Of course, I'll let you know after tomorrow's game, and as the week progresses, I'll do my team selection video. But at the moment, I'm leaning towards just holding things as they are. I really want Nico Jackson, I think is, yeah, and Maddison, but probably don't have the money if they rise in price. There's always this kind of big clamour, once you see a player that you're really impressed by and their price is about to go up and you want to get them in and you're thinking about an early move. I'd still be a bit apprehensive about that because I'm not sure which players you're looking to sell. It could be a Mitoma, who's still got some good fixtures to come, and also Watkins against Everton. If anyone's thinking of selling Watkins, my advice would be not to do it and just hold him for now. Milner, my current preference is to play Turner. I discussed this in the deadline stream too. Yeah, he was livid, I think that's what you're saying. He was really pissed off, basically. I was kind of surprised by that because he just kept on throwing stuff to the pitch and the Chelsea fans were kind of egging him on. Are you aware that Saliba outscored Gabriel while playing last season? I was aware, and that's another thing I talked about in the deadline stream when people asked me why are you selling Gabriel to Saliba, because Saliba is better for bonus points. That was a key reason why he was matching Gabriel, if not outscoring him, until he got injured. Look, I don't think many points will separate the two of them. I think Gabriel will score more goals. I also think Gabriel will still get more minutes, but Saliba's got the bonus points over Gabriel. I don't think Richarlison's a bad pick because he's playing up front for Spurs and he could be on penalties too, but at the moment, the best Spurs midfielder looks like Maddison. Dali Paul says, I already made my transfer from Newcastle, Anderson to Nakamba, Luton, and I didn't know Luton game was off. Yeah, we covered this in pre-season, but it was a long time ago. It was before I even went on holiday, so we're talking about 3-4 weeks ago here. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I think Nakamba's really good for games like Sky Fantasy Football, but in FPL, not really too interested in him. The one Luton Town asset, apart from Kabori and Bell as two enablers, that I'm really impressed by is Morris. Fabrizio reported that Reece was just tired, not injured. Yeah, that's fair enough, but you always have that doubt in the back of your mind, and it is a possibility that he gets injured very soon. Hopefully he doesn't, but it is, quite a likely scenario. Thought Anderson would price drop later. Yeah, in terms of prices, it's good to be aware of who could go up in price, as we covered earlier in this video, but try not to look too much into them and don't just, knee-jerk into very early moves. At least if you're going to make a move for Gameweek 2, I would wait until later on in the week once we've seen press conferences and Man United have played Wolves and all the games are completed. Bring out Gabriel for Chilwell. Well, look, at the moment, if I had to pick between Chilwell and Gabriel, I think Chilwell looks like the better asset, but I still think Arsenal are better than Chelsea defensively. I would keep Gabriel still, but if you can find a way to get Chilwell in, I think that's still a really good move. Ideally, it would be for another defender, but I have to say, Chilwell probably has better fixtures over the next 4 or 5 game weeks. He's obviously got so much attacking potential. He is injury prone. I can understand the reasons why you're considering that move, but I'd probably still keep Gabriel. I just have a lot of faith in him. Arrow says, is it crazy I want to use my wildcard this early to bring in Chelsea assets? I think so. Look, sometimes an early wildcard can be a stroke of genius, but a lot of times when people are considering a wildcard as early as Gameweek 2, 3, 4, I think it's very premature and you're not giving your original picks time to prove themselves. So I would definitely hold off from that wildcard. You can always bring in a Chilwell for, let's say, Gabriel, like Fionki said. If you've got the funds, then great, do a move like that. But it's not worth bringing in 2 or 3 Chelsea assets already. They drew the game today. They had a pretty decent performance under Pochettino, but I don't think it's enough to bring in triple Chelsea. And ultimately, with a wild card, you want to be making 6+ moves. So if you're only looking to bring in 3 Chelsea assets, I don't think that's enough to justify the wild card. Do I swap Saliba from Gabriel? No. I'd hold what you have, in my opinion. Thank you very much, mate. I mean, 100k is definitely a very ambitious goal. It's definitely something that you want to be targeting, but I appreciate the kind words. Same says 73 points, still got Annan and Rashford. Really good stuff. You know, you're going to be looking at 80+ points potentially, so it's looking very solid. Jeremy asked, who would you transfer him? As I said in pre-season, my answer would be Chilwell. They're both injury prone, but I just get the impression that James is a little bit more. And during pre-season, Ben Chilwell's the one getting goals and assists, and today he did the same thing. Reece James hasn't been as impressive from an attacking perspective as Chilwell. Toronto says, I know it's early, Dylan, but which gaming do you think eventually you need to use free hit and wildcard? Free hit I tend to use in a blank or double game week, and we might not get that many this season. But the wild card, I tend to use it around game week 7, 8. I'm going to see if I can hold off a little bit longer this time round, but I think from that point onwards, I definitely would start considering it. As for the free hit, probably later in the season. I can't give you a definitive timeline, but probably after game week 20. How bad is Stones' injury? I'm not so sure if it's that bad, to be fair, but with Man City defenders in general, you know, they always have this rotation, and Stones is an injury prone player. That's another thing that I talked about when he was in my team selection. 72 with Onana, Bruno and Rashford to play, will be happy with top 100k. I mean, that's a good score, and I think 100k is possible for game week 1, but if not, even if you're like 400k, that's still a good start after game week 1, in my opinion. So let me just have a quick look to see any injury updates that I can find for you lot, because there are some questions about injury updates. So John Stones, the latest that we got from him was that he felt a little bit in the abductor, and the potential return is next week, so for the Newcastle game. But it's basically, it's not specific, you know, it's not been clarified absolutely, but it's rumoured to be either a groin, hip or pelvic injury, according to premierinjuries.com. So I don't think it's a serious issue, but it could be enough to see him out for game week 2. I have Onana and Shaw, so how early should I do Shaw to Chilwell? The thing is, though, with Luke Shaw, fair enough, he's facing Tottenham away in Game Week 2, but in Game Week 3 he's facing Nottingham Forest at home, and I would back Man United to keep a clean sheet in that game, despite the good players Nottingham Forest have. So I would still hold on to Shaw. I think Shaw is definitely worth buying in, but not for Luke Shaw at the moment. Surely Saka captain over Haaland in Game Week 2? Not necessarily. I know Newcastle are top of the league right now, and they absolutely demolished Aston Villa, but their record against Man City is awful, and Man City remain the team to beat, the best team in the league. So I would still expect Man City to win, potentially keep a clean sheet as well. And I think Haaland will score a goal. So I'm not so sure about that one. I think Saka's a decent captaincy choice, but really for me, Salah's number 1 in Game Week 2, and I think Haaland is still right up there amongst the best captaincy options. Donkey says, I have 0.5 million left in the bank and don't want to risk the price drop forcing me to make another transfer. Yeah, that's understandable, and this is a very common problem every single time after Game Week 1, heading into Game Week 2, and that's why people make early transfers. Look, like I said, for me, Chilwell's a better option. It is an upgrade, but I just like Gabriel still as an asset, and I think people might regret selling him even as early as Game Week 2. But I have to say, if that's the only way you can get Chilwell and you really want him in, then fair enough, go ahead with it. But I would just be wary about selling Gabriel. When do you usually bench boost? In a double game week. A specific game week in mind, so like between game weeks 28 to 35. That's generally the kind of, you know, time frame I use the bench boost there. Turner or Onana to start in game week 2. I'm currently going for Turner. I know Nottingham Forest didn't look... Well, to be fair, they actually defended quite well against Arsenal, and if it wasn't for the moments of brilliance from Martinelli and Saka, you know, it could have... I'm not sure about a clean sheet, but they could have got a draw or something like that in the game, and they limited Arsenal in terms of big chances. So, yeah, I'd go for Turner at home to Sheffield United. I think that's the way to go. Early Champions League prediction. I was asked this after the deadline on Friday. It's really difficult because, you know, with Real Madrid, good performance the other day, I think it was yesterday, but they also have just lost Eder Militao to an ACL and Courtois. I kind of mentioned Barcelona as one of my picks for the final. I'm not so sure about that. It's just a gut feeling. I think other teams, of course, are Man City. They're the best team in the world right now, club-wise. So, yeah, I think Man City will go far to the semi-finals. I think Barcelona will also be there. Yeah, I'd love to say Arsenal, but still not too sure about that. And I think defensively they still need to improve a lot, and they lack that cutting edge, that killer instinct to really control games and kill them off and not give the opposition a sniff. But yeah, I'd say Barcelona, Man City in the semi-finals, depending on the draw, and then it's just anyone's game, really. You'd probably still back Madrid to go far to the semi-finals, but yeah, it's kind of a difficult one. Thanks for responding regarding Saliba. Was thinking, was price rise. I got much for Saliba when buying him Game Week 2 last season. Look, I have to say, as a person who made a late move from Gabriel to Saliba, not because of the news that came out, I was very lucky with that move. And that assist, whilst he won the ball and he passed it towards Saka, is still a kind of lucky assist, I would argue. But yeah, he is a good option, but I still think Gabriel is just as good. Is Foden guaranteed for more starts this season? It's difficult with Foden because whenever he looks good, whenever he gets a good run, he just suddenly gets dropped and you never see him again for another 2-3 months. So I think Foden has a lot of potential. He's a great dribbler. He's really good to watch, but I'm just not so sure. I'd love to recommend him. If you want a 7-point family midfielder, I think Maddison is the one you really want to go for. Thank you, Ara. I appreciate it. I agree it's early for the wild card. I also have De Bruyne injured and a Stones issue. That's fair enough. You want to get free Chelsea players. You've got 2 issues from the Man City players, but you still might have some good options on your bench. You can come in for De Bruyne and John Stones. So yeah, let me know what your 50-man squad is. I know it's a bit of a pain to type it out. If not, you can send it on Twitter, Instagram, or the Discord server. All the links in the description below. But let me know. Then how are you picking heart versus head with Arsenal? I do struggle with being a Liverpool fan. I think with Arsenal, historically, if you saw my videos from like 2-3 years ago when Arsenal were kind of a top 6 or 8 club, they were looking quite average. I kind of was very cautious and I told people, maybe get 1 or 2 Arsenal players in max for a certain period, but I wouldn't really recommend them in general. Now things are a bit different, but I'm still a bit worried about Arsenal because, when you know your team inside out, you kind of maybe always fear the worst in a way. I sometimes can be very pessimistic when it comes to the Gunners, but yeah, I can understand that with Liverpool as well. But at least you enjoyed a fantastic team of the last 5 years, and I would say you're 2 or 3 signings away from getting to a similar level this season, but I still think another midfielder is needed, especially a defensive midfielder, and I'd say another defender for Liverpool to really challenge. Eze to Mbeumo, as I said to someone else earlier, I probably would do it. Despite how much I rate Eze, I think he played well in Game Week 1. No FPL returns though, faces Arsenal next. You could do something, but you would back Mbeumo to outscore Eze for the next 8 game weeks, I would say. Should we consider Sanchez? Yes, and look, with Pickford, it's only 1 game. I'm not going to say I told you so or that I was right. There's still 37 more game weeks left. But I just don't trust Everton or Pickford, and that's why when people were talking about 4-point family and goalkeepers, I said for me it's Fleck in first, Steele second, and I think I put Leno third. That was my top 3, and I put Pickford above Johnston simply because Pickford has better fixtures beyond Game Week 1. But yeah, I think Sanchez over Pickford is definitely worth it, but at the same time, making early goalkeeper transfers isn't ideal, and I certainly wouldn't get into a habit of chopping and changing the goalkeeper in your team. Although it's a lot easier picking Arsenal when they're playing well. Yes, but even against Forest, I don't think they played that well. Or maybe that's a bit harsh because maybe 2-1. I think Forest had the better chances. Arsenal controlled possession and they had some good moments in the game. But I think a lot of it was down to individual quality why they won. And Nottingham Forest had a good game plan and they almost got a result. And I wouldn't have said it was completely undeserved. Turner or Pickford? Turner for me. Look, Turner's 4 million. And in terms of clean sheets, I'm not expecting much from either side, but I prefer Turner because he also allows you to get a 5 million goalkeeper like Onana or another 4.5 million option who's better than Pickford. Will Stones play next week? I can't really tell you that now. My gut feeling is no. I think he will be back in the squad next week. He'll be on the bench, but I think he'll probably be back in the starting 11 in Game Week 3. Just a gut feeling. I might be wrong. Dylan, which Chelsea asset are you considering to bring in Game Week 3? Jackson is definitely up there. I like Sanchez as a goalkeeper, but I have no reason to sell Onana just yet. Really, for me, Chilwell's the best Chelsea asset at the moment, it looks like. So Chilwell, probably then Jackson. Nkunku would have been right up there, but unfortunately got injured. But yeah, my top 3 at the moment, unless I'm forgetting somebody, yeah, it'd be Chilwell first, who I already got, Jackson second, and Sanchez third. Dylan, just seems that Spurs are after Lukaku. I'm not sure what the source is. I'm always very careful when it comes to the sources, but I'm not sure that's the right move, really. I have to say, they made a very smart signing in Alejo Vélez. He might not be just ready yet, but I've seen him before. I actually went to a game in March where he played for Rosario Central, and he's a very, very good striker. A lot of potential. I think he could definitely be the long-term solution, but yeah, I still think they need a striker for the now, because they've got Richarlison. I don't really trust them to lead the line there for them. So yeah, a striker is definitely, logical, but I'm not sure about Lukaku. Turner or Pickford, we did cover that. I replaced Mings with Chilwell before the match today, yet on points, the replacement hasn't been registered. Chilwell is still on the bench. Yeah, EY, but before the match today, the thing is, if you made the move yesterday, that's for Gameweek 2. It's not for Gameweek 1. So it's not like UCL Fantasy where if you make, substitutions or you change things, you can do it for a particular game week or match day. In FPL, the change you made yesterday is for Gameweek 2, not for Gameweek 1. Got Wissa on the bench with 9 points. Yeah, Wissa, good goal. Brentford Spurs was a fantastic game to watch as well. And I still prefer Mbuma over Wissa, but really fair play with a Wissa pick. Unfortunate that he was on your bench. It was kind of understandable facing Tottenham. So, yeah, it's a bit unlucky, but you made a good pick in selecting him. Potentially Dalipor. In pre-season, Richarlison didn't start a single game. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's only because Kane left to Bayern Munich. That's why Richarlison's starting. So maybe Spurs will still be looking at a striker. I'm not so sure if I'd, give a particular scoreline. I think if you got 60 plus points, I'd be very happy with that, to be fair, especially at this stage of the week. I have Kepa as a backup goalkeeper in my FPL team. What happens to his spot when he leaves on loan? He'll be red flagged and he still covers a Chelsea slot. And if you want to get free Chelsea players in, for example, you would have to sell Kepa in that regard. But you don't need to sell him, but he will just basically be on your bench, not giving you any points, of course, and he would be red flagged. What's about Tonali for FPL asset? I know he scored early on against Aston Villa, but I'd still be a bit apprehensive about going for him in FPL. I'd rather look at Barnes, who got a goal and an assist, coming off the bench as well, which is very impressive. Anderson, of course, could be a nice 4.5 million option. But look, Tonali might be one to look at, but I'm mainly looking at Harvey Barnes from Newcastle. Grinia says, I meant who to play. If you're on about Turner or Pickford, yeah, Turner for me. I'd play Turner. Should I sell Gabriel or play Baldock? I'd start Gabriel still. I know it's very frustrating to see him benched against Nottingham Forest. I don't know, maybe I'm very naive or very stubborn, should I say, but I think Gabriel will start in Game Week 2. I would go for Turner at the moment, Jacob. That's what I've currently gone for, and I talked about this on Friday too. Should we consider Nunez? I like Nunez. I think he's going to have a good season, but my main issue with him is that he's not nailed on. As for Diaz, that's a really good shout. I think today he was Liverpool's best attacker. He was very, very impressive. He's always going to give you a lot of shots, and he's a great dribbler, probably the best Liverpool have, and he's a fantastic player to watch. But for me, in terms of Liverpool assets, I still prefer Jota over Diaz and also Cody Gakpo. The only issue with Gakpo I have now is that he's playing in midfield, and I think that definitely limits his ceiling. So maybe Gakpo will fall down the pecking order as a result, and he's also a forward playing out of position, but in the wrong sense of the word. So yeah, I think Diaz is one to watch, and I might, change my mind about him as an FPL asset. As for Nunez, I'd love to recommend him, but if he's not going to start games on a consistent basis, I can't bring myself to recommend him. Opinion on Højlund when he comes back from injury? United striker for 7 million? Yeah, I think definitely he will be one to look out for. And if you've got Bruno Fernandes and Rashford already, I wouldn't triple up with Højlund as well. If anything, I'd look to get rid of one of those midfielders potentially and find that extra value in the forward line. But yeah, I think Højlund would definitely be a good option to look at. But I'm more interested in Jackson at the moment and Ollie Watkins. But that's definitely a great shout. Thank you, Era. Johnston, Turner, Udogie, Trent, Stones, Estupinian, Kabore, Eze, Mitoma, De Bruyne, Rashford, Saka, Haaland, and 2 4.5s. Had to have Trent and De Bruyne when healthy. That's a really solid team. It's just unfortunate that you've got 2 injuries. But honestly, mate, I wouldn't be looking to wildcard that. I don't think it needs it. So if you were to make a move this week, because it looks like De Bruyne will be out long term, I would maybe sell De Bruyne to Not sure how much you have in the bank. Of course, ideally you go to Salah against Bournemouth, but if you don't have the funds for that, then I would maybe add. I'm trying to think of a good midfielder for you. I wouldn't bring in Fernandes against Tottenham necessarily. A second Arsenal midfielder is still viable. Maddison. I know Man United is not the greatest fixture, but you're kind of making a long-term investment, and you're also opening up a lot of funds for your team, and then that will allow you to get Chilwell in the defense too. So I think I'd go from De Bruyne to an Arsenal midfielder or Maddison. I think that's what I'll do, Era. Welcome, Musica Polo. Have you discussed any reason why Arteta would bring a right back on at left centre back rather than a left-footed centre back, left centre back? Was Arteta drinking heavily before the match, please? Yeah, the main reason why he did it, of course, I can't say exactly why because he's the one setting up the team. I don't talk to him or anything like that, but my opinion, he wanted to bring in Partey as an inverted right back and also slot in Eddie Nketiah, who was really impressing in training, and he wanted to go with a very offensive lineup. But in my opinion, it left Arsenal a bit more vulnerable defensively, especially to the counter-attack. And in terms of balance, Gabriel needs to be in there. And one thing I've noticed, and I discuss this with an Arsenal friend of mine all the time, is that Saliba looks a bit shaky sometimes when Gabriel's not next to him. But when they're both together, it's one of the better centre-back partnerships in the league. So I agree, Gabriel needs to start. I think he will come back into the side. And, you know, there's a reason why Gabriel started 73 consecutive matches for Arsenal. If Man United keep a clean sheet tomorrow and look good defensively, are you still considering Turner? Look, of course, if United look very solid defensively tomorrow, I will reconsider that stance. But I still expect Tottenham to score, especially with their new manager, the way they play. They're very entertaining to watch, I have to say, even removing all bias aside. I have to say Spurs might be one of the more entertaining teams to watch this season. I would still back Turner for the clean sheet more than Onana, but it's certainly something to reassess as the week goes on. Will Akanji start in Game Week 2? Look, I'd say yes. A lot will depend on the lineup on Thursday in the Super Cup final against Sevilla. And also if John Stones is available, if Gvardiol is fit enough to play from minute 1. All of these things will play a part, but I think Akanji will start, yes. What are the best apps to have for FPL, for live standings, etc.? I'm not sure if they have an app, but livefpl.net is probably the best one, I'd say, in terms of giving you your live rank. I can give you a link right now, and I can also show you what it looks like. So if we go now to livefpl.net, this is what I use before I go live and I set up a stream. All the points are updated already with the bonus points in mind. They give you the rank before subs and also after subs are made. So currently I'm around 800k. After all the substitutions have come on for people, I do go down to around 1 million. So I will give you a link in the live chat right now, so be sure to check that out. I'm not sponsored by them, I just think it's a really good resource, and they've also got other tools such as checking your live leagues. You can check how many points you have compared to your mates if you want to keep track of that and have a bit of fun. You can also plan your team ahead for future game weeks, just like FPL.team, which I always use in my videos. Another website I would recommend to you is DraftHand, which has helped me tremendously in terms of setting up my team for Game Week 1 this season. It's something I've started using in late June, and I haven't regretted it at all. So I would definitely try DraftHand out for free first, and if you do like the look of it, then use the link in the description below, and you'll help me, I'll help you out, and you can have a pro paid tier membership, and you will be able to have access to all the tools like the assistant manager tool. You can also see all the expected points, chance of scoring, also chance of clean sheets for different teams, fixture analysis, player comparisons, predicted lineups. All of these tools are very helpful and fairly accurate most of the time, I would argue, as well. So DraftHand is definitely something I would recommend to all of you, and I have to say it's changed the way I look at FPL, and some of the picks I've gone for in Game Week 1 have come from DraftHand. Thoughts on captaining Watkins? Very good shout, I have to say. It's not something I've really considered before you mention it, so it's a really good shout. Fun question: who in your opinion is the greatest ever FPL asset? I didn't play FPL back in the days of Thierry Henry, Cristiano Ronaldo, so I'll probably go for Mohamed Salah as the best FPL asset of all time. So when I saw him score, make it 2-1, I was kind of thinking to myself, why the hell did I not go for the best FPL asset ever? Welcome Toronto again. I say welcome, you're already here. I have 77 points so far with Rashford to go. Really good stuff. I would expect 80 plus points for you there, so fantastic, and really good start to the season. Joel says, I have Kepa as a backup goalkeeper. I have answered this question. Just to recap, what would happen is Kepa would be red flagged. He will not contribute towards any more points because he won't play in the league anymore. And if you want to have 3 Chelsea players and you've still got Kepa, you will need to sell Kepa in order to facilitate that extra Chelsea slot. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. Arteta was drinking heavily. Look, Arteta is one of the better managers in the league. Maybe a bit of a biased view there, but he has gotten a lot of things right tactically. I think against Nottingham Forest, he did tinker a bit too much, and I didn't like that setup. I think Arsenal could have played even better, scored more goals, won more comfortably if Gabriel started, and also if Trossard starts. I don't know what he has to do to get a start, really, but there you go. Nketiah came into the starting 11, he scored, so there you go. Timber situation. We don't have a definitive update yet, but it looks like he has a injury to his knee. He could be out for a few weeks. It's all going to be down to the scan. We'll have more information as the week progresses, but I would, probably gauge that he's going to be out for a few weeks at the very least. Hopefully it's nothing longer than that. Harry says, you have to sell him, unfortunately, Joel. Kepa stays in your team but gains a red flag unless you want to play with one keeper. Yes, if you want a playing goalkeeper. Well, he said that he has Kepa as his backup goalkeeper, so I don't think that's too bad, but inevitably you would want to sell him. Pro Street Biker says, Onana, Trent, Saliba, Trippier, Kanji, Diaz, Maddison, Garnacho, Saka, Nketiah, Haaland, Pope, Virgil, Sarr, Alvarez, 88 points. Really good start to the season. I would be a bit concerned that you have too much squad depth because you're going to have points on your bench pretty much every single week, but you got 88 points, that's more than me, so fair play, mate. Vedant puts his team Onana, Areola, Stupinian, Chilwell, Gabriel, Stones, Baldock, Saka, Mitoma, Fernandes, Martinelli, Foden, Jackson, Joao Pedro, Haaland. I mean, it's really tough to improve upon a team like that. I have to say it's really good stuff. I would keep Gabriel. I'd keep the faith of him. A bit concerned with Stones and his injury, but it shouldn't be too long term. I'd probably keep things as they are. I actually think Foden could do well against Newcastle if he starts. I think Foden will be benched against Sevilla and start against Newcastle. I think the rest is looking really good. I'd roll the transfer. But in the future, I think a few moves you could consider is possibly replacing John Stones. Too much rotation there of Man City defenders. And I think that could be a big issue for you in the future. And eventually I would sell Foden, maybe to Maddison around Game Week 4. Richarlison's so useless despite them playing not so bad. The thing is, though, Spurs will create chances and Richarlison will score goals this season. Will he score enough to be a good FPL asset? That's a different question entirely, but Maddison is the one to go for from Spurs at the moment. Hi, Dylan. Between Joao Pedro or Fernandes, who would you consider for Game Week 2? Bruno Fernandes, well, I would go for Joao Pedro simply for the fixture, but long-term, Bruno Fernandes is a much better FPL asset, and Joao Pedro might be a bit over-reliant on penalties. Kalia says, did you lose a bet? I mean, I support Arsenal, so yeah, it's not really losing a bet or anything. I'm just wearing it because why not? Where can we follow price changes? I put the link earlier in this stream, so if we go back to it, we will go back to, let's see, yeah, here it is. FPLstatistics.co.uk. So currently Isak is the closest to a price rise, and in terms of a price drop, I think Kevin De Bruyne is the closest. Yes, he is. And Nkunku is also up there as well. So yeah, that is the website. Just put the link in the description or in the live chat. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, Frankie. What should I do with Gabriel and Stones? I'd definitely keep Gabriel. Stones is kind of a wait and see because of his injury. I think he could possibly miss Game Week 2, but I would definitely expect him to be back very soon. It's not really an issue, Jay. He was basically dropped because of tactical reasons to get Nketiah into the starting 11 whilst keeping Havertz in the midfield and also to bring Partey in the right back position. Welcome, Tarich. Hello. Is it that you have one free transfer every game week? You get one free transfer every game week, but you can't stack up more than 2. So let's say, for example, in Game Week 2, you don't make a transfer, and also in Game Week 3, you decide to roll the transfer as well. You will still have 2 free transfers going into Game Week 4, and you will have burnt, essentially, a free transfer. So yes, you do get 1 free transfer every week, but you can only hold up to 2 transfers maximum. Is it smart to swap out Stones with Chilwell since Chelsea got easier games? Well, I think the main appeal behind getting Chilwell is that he's more nailed on than John Stones, and he also has, yeah, arguably better fixtures and more attacking potential. And on top of that, John Stones looks to be injured as well, potentially missing Game Week 2. So there's a lot of reasons to do that. I think it's a good transfer to make. I still think Man City are much better defensively than Chelsea, but would I make that move? Possibly, yeah. What about Mings? I'm not so sure what the latest update is. I'll have a quick look now, but that is a good question. You know, it also relates to my team. I'm kind of hoping for the best there. So the latest news on Tyrone Mings, oh no, he's just got a knee injury, no return date being given, currently being assessed, and he is ruled out at the moment. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, there's no big update on Tyrone Mings, but let me know if you do see anything online too. That's another website that I do use here on my videos, especially, let me just try and get this, Premier Injuries. Here we go. So yeah, this is the website I use to keep track on all the injury updates. So literally as soon as the press conferences are given, you know, give or take maybe a few minutes or an hour, the website will be updated and you have all the latest updates for anyone that you wish, like Tyrone Mings. So at the moment, I don't think there's an update, a conclusive one, but if there is something online, then be sure to let me know. Let's now go back to my team. Just to recap, I have scored 70 points so far. I've got triple Man United for tomorrow's Monday night clash against Wolves. I'm fairly confident that I will get 10 plus more points to have around 80, maybe even possibly 90 if things go very well tomorrow. So a pretty decent start to the season, all things considered. So we've got over 100 people watching. Well, now it's around 70. So be sure to rack up the likes to around 100 plus. I think we can definitely do that. So that'd be much appreciated. Diaby or Maddison in for Martinelli? Look, Diaby for me could be a fantastic differential in the future. I would keep Martinelli personally, but if you really want to sell him, I think Maddison is he's the one that really impressed me among 7.5 million and below midfielders. Thank you, Verdun. I appreciate it. Eze keep. I like Eze a lot. He could do something against Arsenal, but the fixtures in general aren't great. And you could possibly sell him to Mbumo or maybe even Maddison if you've got the funds. Do I sell Gabriel Stones? I'd definitely keep Gabriel. I'd be more open to selling Stones, possibly to Chilwell, but Gabriel is a keep for me. Yeah, Luis Diaz looked fantastic today. I'm still not completely convinced about him as an FPL asset because he might not be the most nailed-on player. And in terms of goals and assists, I think Jota is probably better, but he looked fantastic. Do you think Newcastle looks better than Arsenal? I mean, it's really difficult to say that after one game week, to be honest. You know, in Game Week 1, Newcastle were probably the best team in the country. That's why they're top of the league. They scored 5 against the good Aston Villa side. I think Havertz had a decent game. I mean, it's kind of a tough one. He created 2 chances, one for Saka at the very end, which probably should have been scored, and also for Declan Rice. And, you know, there were 2 pretty good chances. And he also got into some really good positions. Can he do better? Definitely. I don't think he's a clinical finisher. I don't see him, you know, scoring 15 plus Premier League goals, but you know, can he get 10, 15 goal contributions? Yes, and that's what I'm backing him to do. 62 points right now of Vanana, Fernandes, and Rashford to still play. Is that good? Yes. I think anything above 60 is a pretty good score, especially if you've got players left. Is 64 points with Rashford, Bruno, and Onana good? Same as Probs. Still looks really good. Would you consider just getting Liverpool players for Game Week 2? I mean, I'd love to have Liverpool players, but my plan is to roll the transfer. I have to be honest, if I had the funds to get Salah in, I'd probably do it, but I don't. So the plan is to roll. Koopsie Koop says, sell Foden for Mbumo. Mbumo looked really sharp and now plays Fulham that conceded 3 XG to bloody Everton. Yeah, that's a fair point. And if it wasn't for Leno, maybe we're talking about a completely different story there. I think Mbumo looks fantastic, even beyond Game Week 2. Great fixtures. He's on penalties. He has a lot of shots. And he's also now being subbed off later on in games. And he can also get more 90-minute appearances. If Tony's on the pitch, then Mbumo will be subbed off quite early on, around 60-70 minutes. And he might even get the occasional benching. But now he looks like one of the better 6.5 million midfielders, which we discussed extensively in my videos. He was in my team selection video, and he was close to being in my final team, but I ended up going for Mitoma. Is Phil Foden a good asset? If I knew he'd start every single week, then I'd say yes. The big issue with him is you're never going to get that certainty, and whilst I think he'll start in Game Week 2, I can't guarantee he will in Game Week 3 and beyond as well. Would I downgrade him to Mbumo or Mitoma? Long time I would. Maybe not necessarily in Game Week 2 because I'm backing him to start and possibly score against Newcastle, but I think in the long term, Mbumo is the play. Should I sell Gabriel and Akanji for Chilwell and Henry? As good as Chilwell and Henry were this week, I wouldn't be selling Gabriel. With Akanji, he's going to be a rotation risk, in my opinion, in the future. But I'd probably keep them for now. See Man City starting lineup in the UEFA Super Cup final. If Akanji starts there as well, then I'd be open to selling him to Chilwell. Are you happy captaining Haaland this week? Not necessarily. You know, even with no KDB, Haaland scored. You know, Haaland is an absolute animal, and he scored against Newcastle in the 2-0 win last season. I don't think Haaland's ceiling is high. I think he'll probably score 1 goal, not the brace as I predicted for the Burnley game. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think if I had Salah, I'd definitely captain him over Haaland. But when I'm comparing Haaland to Saka, Rashford, Bruno, and all these other options, I'd still probably rather captain Haaland. The one player, ironically, I might captain over Haaland is Ollie Watkins because of Everton being quite poor on paper. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Stones for Akanji. I'm not so sure about that. You know, Akanji, yes, he might be a bit more nailed on than Stones, but the reason why Stones didn't even, you know, why he wasn't even on the bench in Game Week 1 is because he had an injury problem. I'd be a bit concerned about that one. If anything, I'd do Stones to Chilwell. I'm not so sure about Akanji. I'd definitely wait until the Thursday lineup, like I said, for the UEFA Super Cup final. Imagine Chelsea with Nkunku and Caicedo. I still think there are a few average players in the Chelsea starting 11, but with the way they played today, adding a very promising and probably a top quality DM in Caicedo and Nkunku, who gets basically a goal contribution every 2 games, I think Chelsea could be a pretty strong contender for top 4 and even possibly above that. So, yeah, I think Chelsea are, you know, a team to look out for. I think I told you on Friday they're the dark horses, I think, this season because of how poor they were last time. So, yeah, I think once Nkunku comes back, which will be a long time from now, and once Caicedo gets into the team, Chelsea could be really good. Start Onana or Turner. I'm currently going for Turner. Diogo says 75 points for Bruno to go. Yeah, it definitely is good, and I think 80 plus points is possible. I would keep Gabriel. I've been telling everyone this today. Yes, you know, he didn't play, in Game Week 1. Arsenal conceded as well to Forest, and a clean sheet isn't guaranteed against Crystal Palace, but I would keep Gabriel. He's still got the most goal threat of any Arsenal defender. He's still the most nailed overall, in my opinion. So, yeah, I would keep Gabriel. With what you're saying is a decent plan to bench Eze for Game Week 2, then playing versus Wolves, and then maybe transferring for Mbeumo. I think that looks very solid, Milner. And look, even playing him against Arsenal, I don't mind that too much. Of course, when you're comparing him to Mitoma against Wolves and Mbeumo away to Fulham, you would bet them, or you'd back those two to outscore Eze. But yeah, that looks like a solid plan. Martinelli to Diaby. I'm afraid that Aston Villa will smash Everton. Yeah, I think Villa will probably score 2 or 3 against Everton. And that's why Watkins is a possible captaincy choice for me. And Diaby already with a debut Premier League goal. So yeah, that's a decent shout, but I'll keep Martinelli for now. He was actually Arsenal's best player against Nottingham Forest. Do you play Sorare? Yes, I do. I don't think I locked in my teams for Game Week 1, but I have been talking about Sorare before. There's a link in the description below to play Sorare too. When is Nkunku coming back? I don't remember the exact time frame, but I think he's out until January. Let me double check that for you. I think he's out for multiple months. So just have a quick look again. He's out for an extensive period. The 25-year-old's undergone an operation. Will now begin a rehab program with the club's medical department. So a potential return is apparently in November. So 3 months from now. So yeah, he's out for a couple of months for sure. Possibly around late November, early December. Let's wait and see how that injury develops as well. But yeah, we've covered pretty much everything we need to ahead of Game Week 2. Remember, there's going to be more content headed your way. Let me know if you want to see transfer tips ahead of the next deadline. If you want to see the team selection video, of course, the deadline stream. I think it's another Friday deadline as well. And there's also going to be more content headed your way. Best free hit team. Let me know what you want to see in the community tab of YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Discord server. There's so many different things you can talk to me on, you could say. Would you sell gems for sure? Not in Game Week 2 when Reece James, yes, he might be injured, but I think the latest update is that he was tied against Liverpool. But I would not do that because Luke Shaw's facing Tottenham away. Reece James is playing West Ham away. I'd still back Chelsea more defensively in Game Week 2. What about Disasi? Is he a good asset? Of course, he scored on his debut. He looked pretty decent, but from Chelsea, I'd just mainly be looking at Chilwell defensively. I think Colwell's pretty decent for 4.5 million, but I think Chilwell is the one to go for. What player in your starting 11 do you see yourself selling first? Great question. I would probably say Mitoma. So one thing I could do is Mitoma to Mbeumo around Game Week 4 or to Maddison. I think that's what I'm mainly looking to do. And of course, Mings, he's probably going to be out for a few weeks or months. So he's another one I'm looking to sell. Thank you, KM. I have 75 points, Bruno and Rashford to go. Really good stuff. And you'd be backing an 80+ point return there. My difference, or my defense destroy my team. Gabriel, Trent and Stones. What should I do now with only one transfer? I wouldn't panic. I wouldn't knee-jerk. Gabriel should get back into the side against Palace. Trent Alexander-Arnold faces Bournemouth, where he got a 9-pointer last season in a 9-0 win. John Stones has a bit of an injury problem, but could come back into the side very soon. I think he'll be back in the squad in Gameweek 2, but not in the starting 11. And he should definitely be available to start in Gameweek 3. I'm not sure what your other defenders are. So if you've got really poor squad depth defensively, and you're not, let's say, for example, you've got Luton Town and Burnley defenders, then maybe I would look to do Stones to Chilwell. But otherwise, you could just roll with what you have. That would be my advice there for you. So, yeah, we've covered quite a lot of questions today. If you've got any more, then be sure to let me know. We've been streaming for, around an hour, I'd say? Yeah, over an hour already. It's whizzed by. It's been very, very enjoyable. Just trying to see if there's anything else we want to cover. I think I might leave some of this to the deadline stream where we cover more things like predicted points, the fixture ticker as well, which is very useful for a lot of you. We have compared Mitoma to Maddison stats, which are identical after Gameweek 1. We've had a look at the price rises and falls potentially. There shouldn't be any today, but Isak is close to a price rise. Kevin De Bruyne is close to going down, just so you're aware. And we have used other resources like DraftHand, which I'd thoroughly recommend to all of you. Do we really... is it affordable to not captain Haaland? Well, it's possible to go against him. I think Watkins, Mohamed Salah would be two of the standout options. And even an Arsenal midfielder against Palace isn't too bad, but I still think Haaland is right up there in the top 3 captaincy options, unfortunately. And in home games, Haaland is almost impeccable. I think if he was facing Newcastle away, I'd look to be captaining someone else. But because he's facing them at home, I'd still be quite happy to captain him. What do you think about Van Heck, 4 million defender for Brighton? Started and looked very good. Maybe a gem in the first wildcard. That's a really good shout. A bit of a surprise to see him starting instead of Veltman, potentially. Yeah, he could definitely be one to look at, even when Brighton's fixtures get a bit tougher around Gameweek 4 or 5. A 4 million defender from Brighton, you can't complain too much there. Very unlucky not to get the clean sheet against Luton Town. Very soft penalty conceded, so that's a really good shout, Diogo. You've got Van Heck, you've got Kabore, who looked pretty decent as well, all things considered. Bell, Bayer, of course, they all blank in Gameweek 2, by the way. Bear in mind, Luton Town versus Burnley is a blank. Baldock, a 4 million defender. So, yeah, we suddenly have quite a lot of decent enablers in each position. Luis says, thoughts on a Salah, Saka, Fernandes, Eze midfield? I like it a lot. I think Eze might not be as promising because of the fixtures compared to Mbeumo and Mitoma. I think one way to improve that team is to move Eze onto Mbeumo, but I still like Eze a lot. Yeah, Foden as well. I think he'll start and score against Newcastle. Of course, if he doesn't start against Newcastle, then my prediction's down in the bin. And a lot will depend on the Thursday lineup in the UEFA Super Cup final. Rice and Enzo on the same price. Who would you buy? I think Enzo Fernandez has more potential, and it's a tough one. I'm kind of conflicted. I'm an Argentina and Arsenal fan. I have to say, I probably prefer Enzo. I have to say I prefer Enzo. Look, Rice is more established, he's got more experience, and I would also argue he's more versatile. He can play as a centre-back, centre-mid, and CDM. He's better defensively than Enzo Fernandez, and he's also better physically. But I think Enzo's technique, and I'd also say, yeah, his dribbling, his passing is probably what sets him apart a little bit from Rice, but they're both quite similar, I'd say, in terms of ability. But Enzo Fernandez has more potential. You could argue Rice is better right now, just by a little bit, but Enzo has more potential, and in terms of price, I think Enzo is worth more. Same says, my Gameweek 2 team, Turner, Estupinian, Chilwell, Cash, Saka, Rashford, Salah captain, Mbeumo, Eze, Haaland, Pedro, bench, Anana, Gabriel, Baldock, Osula. Is there a need for a transfer? Not necessarily. Cash at home to Everton looks good, despite shipping in 5 against Newcastle. Good back line overall. Turner at home to Sheffield United, pretty decent. I probably would go for him over Onana. Salah captain, enjoy the points, I have to say. That looks really good. I would consider Gabriel over Eze. It just depends what you're expecting in that game, but I think Eze over Gabriel is still a sensible decision. and you tend to back the attacker over the defender. So yeah, I don't think you need to make a transfer. If there was one move to make, it could be Eze to Mitoma, or not sure how much money you have in the bank. If you had 1 million, you could consider Maddison in the future, but I don't think you need to make a transfer right now, ultimately. What was your biggest Gameweek 1 surprise? Great question. I have to say that's a fantastic question. Biggest surprise? Wow. Well, when I found out about the rumours of Gabriel being benched, that's probably my biggest surprise, if that counts. So, yeah, I think Gabriel being benched and Partey right back and Nketiah up front, that probably stood out as a big surprise for me. I'm trying to think of anything else, but that does answer the question. All right, let's go to what's left. I prefer Rodri over Enzo and Rice. Well, yeah, I mean, Rodri is a better player than Enzo and Rice, but Enzo, I see him more as a central midfielder, more advanced than a CDM. He can play there. He did it for Argentina in the World Cup, but yeah, for me, Enzo has the most potential of all three of them. He could become an even better player than Rodri eventually, but right now, Rodri's the best defensive midfielder in the world. It is a bit frustrating seeing him always get away with fouls and yellow cards, but, you know, Casemiro was like that back, you know, in his Real Madrid and Brazil days, so, you know, it's kind of a trait that the best DMs, defensive midfielders, have. 64 points of short to play, Diaby and Cho on my bench. That's a bit frustrating, to say the least, but still a pretty good start to the season, and Luke Shaw could give you that clean sheet and 70-pointer. Would a -4 from Stones to Chilwell and Eze to Mbeumo be a good choice? I have to say, it's a good hit. I think ultimately the hit will pay off, but I would try to avoid the hit if you can. You know, I know it sounds contradictory, but it's all circumstantial. Who's on your bench? You know, for example, do you have an Everton defender, not Everton defender, sorry, an Aston Villa defender against Everton? If you do, I would just be happy to bring them on for John Stones if needed, and then just stick to Mbeumo in for Eze. So let me know your thoughts, Luis, and what your team situation is. But yeah, Chilwell and Mbeumo looks like a good hit, and it could pay off long term. But I always try to avoid them if necessary. You know, if you just look at your team and think, can I get or can I prevent taking a hit? Do I really need to take this hit? And if the answer is no, I don't really need to, then I'd reconsider it. I think City getting Kovacic to replace Gundogan is pretty poor. I don't see anything he can bring to City. I think Kovacic, yeah, he's a great dribbler. He's also a good passer, but he's not going to give you the goals that Gundogan did. I would argue that Gundogan is better defensively too. So I do understand what you're saying. Gundogan does look like, Kovacic looks like a typical Man City player though. Someone who can keep the ball for days, he can recycle possession, and I think he could still be a decent signing, but I still think Man City need another midfielder, a right winger, to, you know, get back to the level they were at last season. Toronto says, so Dylan, I have Salah in my team. However long do you think I should wait to transfer him out if the points are not coming in from him? The thing with Liverpool is their fixtures aren't great. So in Gameweek 3, they play Newcastle, but you're not going to sell him against Bournemouth, that's for sure. So despite the curse in Gameweek 2 for Salah, keep him. And if you are looking to sell him potentially, maybe look around Gameweek 3 or 4. But honestly, I'd keep Salah. I think that's a fantastic, maybe not differential, but a lot of us don't have him. You know, a lot of people in the template. Most of us have gone for the Arsenal and Man United midfielders. And I think Salah in Gameweek 2 could really propel you up the ranks. I'm kind of fearing the worst with Salah going without him against Bournemouth. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. 11 months, so almost an entire year. I appreciate that very much, Alex. The same goes for all the channel members and patrons, and a big shout out to the new ones like Ben Lockett, who has become a patron very recently. And I'm also going to give a shout out to some of the new channel members on YouTube, which includes Abhishek Patra and Ananda Peroni. Of course, Kat is another one who has been a long-term channel member. So thank you very much for all the support. And trust me, your contributions keep this channel going. So thank you. Weiseng says, do you think I should make the Timber switch immediately? No, I wouldn't make it immediately. I know why you'd want to do it because of the potential price drop and some of the players you want to bring in, like Chilwell. They could go up in price. I think you've got Chilwell in already, by the way. But I would wait and see because there is still a chance that Timber is fine. Arteta's comments surrounding Timber was that going into the half-time, because he got the injury just before that, the medical team told him that he should be fine to play in the second half, but then he felt something awkward, and that's why they decided to just take him off and not risk anything. But there is still a chance he's out for a few weeks or months, so my advice would be to just wait until probably the Thursday, Friday. And then once we get, official confirmation, lock in your transfer if you need to sell Timber. My gut feeling is that he's going to be out for at least a few weeks. Should I sell Stones? If you don't have good defensive cover, so even an Aston Villa defender against Everton at home, if you don't have that, you don't trust your other defenders, then I would sell Stones, possibly to Ben Chilwell if you can. What do you think about Salah being subbed up today? It has happened a few times before, maybe not as early as it did today. I would have kept him on, to be honest, because he looked pretty good. He scored, obviously he was offside, but he looked very lively, got the assist for the first goal, and he got into some good positions. I would have kept him on personally, but Klopp knows way better than me. Should I sell Son? It's early days. He's facing Man United next. He's got a decent record against the Red Devils, and he's got some great fixtures after that. But I'd probably keep him for now. But I have to say, he's had a very underwhelming pre-season. That already put me off from going for Heung-min Son. I wasn't backing him to score today. He came very close on one occasion. Flecken made a really good save. So, yeah, with Son, I'd probably show a bit more faith, keep him for at least 2 or 3 more game weeks. But I have to say, I'm not really expecting him to have, the sort of numbers that he did a few years ago. Yeah, that's a really good point. As soon as he came off in the second half, Nottingham Forest scored against Man City literally minutes after. I think Timber's really important in how Arsenal play, the build-up from the back, and he's also very solid defensively, so it would be a big blow if he was out. Zinchenko's also already got an injury problem, Gabriel Jesus too, and Arsenal, as much squad depth as they're building this season, injuries always seem to affect them. Louis says, the only cover I have for Stones is Baldock. Not the worst in the world, but I would expect Nottingham Forest to score. And my personal gut feeling is that John Stones will be in the squad, but not starting against Newcastle in Gameweek 2, and he'll be back in the starting 11 in Gameweek 3. So, yes, I think naturally going from Stones to Chilwell is the right thing to do. And you would expect Chilwell to go up in price probably in the next few days. Not today, but it's still a possibility. So, yeah, I think I probably would do it. It does seem a bit knee-jerky, even from my perspective. I'm recommending the transfer. I always try to urge caution and, to be patient, but I think that is a worthwhile move. I had Stones bench, but I don't know how long he's out for. I don't think he'll be out for long. My personal opinion is that he'll miss Gameweek 2. He won't start at least. He might be on the bench. But the injury shouldn't be too bad. Yeah, Rice was pretty impressive. He should have scored as well against Nottingham Forest. He had a really good long shot, which was saved by Turner. And he had a very good chance created by Havertz, which he should have scored. So, yeah. In terms of Odegaard, I think he just pulled the strings. But the thing with Odegaard this season, and I predicted it in pre-season, and I might be wrong. I'll be happy to admit when I'm wrong. But my prediction was that Odegaard will get less goals this season. He won't get to 15. Maybe not even to 10 plus, but he will get more assists this time round. He's going to be the kind of puppet master pulling the strings. So FPL-wise, I prefer Martinelli and Saka over Odegaard, but he'll still be very good for bonus points and assists. Fair enough, Seaman. I'd probably just keep Stones for now then. At least wait a few more days, see if you can get any more injury updates. You should get one around Tuesday or Wednesday because City play in the UEFA Super Cup final. So I know Pep Guardiola isn't really the most reliable person in press conferences, but I'd wait a little bit longer and see what he says there. Maybe he'll finally be a bit truthful for once there. Thank you, Dylan. So hi, fellow Dylan here. Don't want to be too knee-jerky, but I'm really excited by Maddison. Now, I completely understand. I think Maddison was probably Spurs' best player against Brentford. Him and Rico Henry stood out from that game, and in Boomer, of course. But mainly, I'd say Maddison and Rico Henry. Could Martinelli to Maddison genuinely be on? Yes, and what I'm looking to do is Mitoma to Maddison around game week 3 or 4 mainly. So, yeah, I'm looking at a similar move, but I'd be more inclined to keep Martinelli and sell Mitoma instead. But of course, early days, I still need to make funds in order to make that move happen. But Maddison will be on all of our radars now after a very solid performance. He also had a really good game against Shakhtar Donetsk, I think it was, in Harry Kane's last game in pre-season. I don't think Maddison got a goal or assist, but he just had an absolute amazing game and he looked really good FPL-wise. He has a lot of FPL potential. What do you think about Saka Martinelli dribbling? I think Martinelli is more direct. So what Martinelli does is he beats defenders for pace. In terms of dribbling, it's kind of all subjective. I think Martinelli might be a better dribbler, but Saka's got better control. Saka's kind of the type to... It's so difficult to get the ball off Saka, but he doesn't do enough take-ons. That's something I'd like to see him do more of. yeah, Saka overall as a player is better, more consistent, more versatile. But Martinelli is a better finisher still, in my opinion. And look, they're both still similar level, but you would give Saka the edge there. Max says, so tempted by Salah. How can I get him in for only a -4 hit? I have the same team as you, but Stones instead of Mings. I think Stones is maybe someone you look at, but yeah, that wouldn't be enough. Even if you go to a 4 million defender, and I wouldn't recommend that, by the way. I can understand your frustration. I think Fernandes or Rashford is the one you'd look to upgrade to Salah. But ultimately, I think if you want Salah, Watkins down to João Pedro and Rashford or Bruno to Salah. I think that should be enough. Let me just double check that. Maybe maths isn't my strong suit anymore. So yeah, let's do Rashford to Salah. And we will do Watkins down to João Pedro. So how much money would it have to... Oh, it'd still be 1 million off. Yeah, damn. That's a bit of a shame. That would have been pretty good. Yeah, 1 million off. Blimey. Blimey. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame because otherwise, you know, that looks pretty easy. You're not going to downgrade Haaland, are you? Don't do that. Just don't do that. So, yeah. If not, you have to go to a 4.5 million forward, which I don't really recommend, really. Honestly, if he didn't go for selling Game Week 1, I know he looked good today. I probably wouldn't go for it, but yeah, I think going to a 4.5 million forward, but selling Watkins ahead of Everton, don't do it. Cheers, I don't have Mitoma, but I do have Mbeumo. Not sure if I want to part ways with him or Martinelli more. Honestly, it's tough to say. I think Martinelli had a better performance than Mbeumo, but Mbeumo looked more likely to score. He had the penalty, which he scored, and he also had a few more shots than Martinelli did. It's a tough one, of course. There's a 1.5 million price difference too to consider. I probably would prefer keeping Mbeumo simply for the price and the penalties. Thank you, Wardy. I appreciate that very much. Salah captain Game Week 2. I'd go for Salah captain. The only thing that would maybe make me reconsider is his record in Game Week 2. But honestly, I wouldn't think too much about it. I would go for Salah as your captain. Jackson versus João Pedro. Look, with João Pedro, I promise I'm not being salty. You know, I think he's a good asset. You know, he's looks quite nailed on in that Brighton team. He's versatile. He's on penalties. But all of his goals so far for Brighton have been penalties. But that's the big thing about penalty takers. You know, that moment can change your week and that can turn a 1 or 2 pointer into 7+ points. So I like João Pedro, but just think about it. Beyond Game Week 3, you know, does João Pedro look as appealing as Jackson? You might bring in João Pedro, get a few points in the next 2 game weeks, but ultimately look to sell him again for Jackson. I have to say right now I prefer Jackson, despite Jackson blanking against Liverpool. Lewis says, my team is Onana, Gabriel, Estupinian, Chilwell, midfield being Salah, Saka, Fernandes, Eze and Foden with Haaland and João Pedro as the strikers. I like it a lot. My issues with this team long term would be Foden. Despite me backing him to start in Game Week 2, I can't guarantee that in the long term. As for Eze, I like him a lot as an FPL asset. I think he'll be right up there for points scored amongst midfielders this season. But when you look at Mbeumo, he's got better fixtures, and Eze to Mbeumo could be a very solid move even right now. Why do I think Mitoma is not explosive as last season? Probably because he had a poor end to the last season. You know, I remember he played really well against Arsenal, but still blanked in FPL. He only got like 1 assist in the last 8 or 9 game weeks. In pre-season, he only got 1 assist. And in Game Week 1 against Luton Town, who Brighton scored 4 goals against, Mitoma only got 1 assist. So I think it's quite natural to think that. Watch Brentford Spurs earlier. Rico Henry looks quality. I completely agree. I prefer Rico Henry. Now, overall, I think Botman will get more clean sheets and maybe more points this season. But if you're bringing in a defender now, Botman's facing Man City in Game Week 2 and Liverpool in Game Week 3, and the fixtures don't clear up until Game Week 5. So I probably would go for Rico Henry right now. After Game Week 5, different story. I think Botman's the best one to have until the end of the season. But right now, if you're looking to make a move, it'd be Rico Henry. And I agree. I think he was Brentford's best player today. Shaw to Chilwell or Havertz to Diaby or Mbeumo? Honestly, I think Havertz to Mbeumo looks like the best move there. I like Diaby a lot. Really good shout there. And Chilwell looked absolutely fantastic today. But I think Havertz to Mbeumo is the best move. There's too many good assets this season. Well, that is a good thing in a way because hopefully it breaks up the template. And, you know, it's kind of surprising, you know, I made my team myself. I never even looked at any other content creators' teams, and the only kind of teams I've looked at is when I did the rating your teams videos, and also the stuff that I see on the Discord server and Twitter and Instagram in general, you know, the ones that are sent in to me. So it is kind of maybe sometimes a bit disheartening to see you have a very similar team to everyone else. So hopefully we do see a bit of a breaking of the template later this season. In UCL Fantasy, one thing I love about it is the fact that teams are so different, and there are so many picks in UCL Fantasy, especially in the group stages, that things are just very interesting from the get-go. Thank you very much for everyone thank you very much to everyone for watching this video. It's been a blast. We've been streaming for over an hour and a half, and it hasn't felt like it at all. So be sure to smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this stream to over 100+ likes. The plan is to do more reaction streams in the future, so let me know if you want to see more of these streams. And also in terms of, let me just get rid of this little thing here. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. You can also check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships, Discord server, the FPL League, and also DraftHand. I'd highly recommend you check out DraftHand first for free, and then become a pro tier member if you enjoy it using my link. I have to say, DraftHand is probably one of the best sites I've used this season. Thank you, Alex. I'm also going to be heading off. And yeah, I didn't see your question in time, but no worries, mate. And thank you to everyone for tuning in and making this a thoroughly enjoyable FPL stream. So keep an eye out for more content in the future. If you've got any ideas for content, I'm all ears. I'm looking to incorporate, you know, some new types of videos this season and to be different from the rest. So I appreciate all your support. Like I said, be sure to drop this video a like on your way out and subscribe to the channel as we're looking to get to 19,000 subscribers. So take care, enjoy the football. Let's see what happens with the Man United versus Wolves games tomorrow. There's 3 players left for me, a decent start to the season, and hopefully things get even better. Take care now.